Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we've got a really detailed stack of market intelligence in front of us.
We do. It covers a lot of ground.
It really does. Everything from these huge equity moves on the Baghdad Stock Exchange all the way to, deep technical drilling records in the oil fields, and of course the political side of things.
Right, which you can never ignore.
Exactly. So our mission today is a deep dive into all of it. We're looking at the verified developments shaping Iraq's financial markets, its reforms, and that political stability.
And our goal is to really extract the signal from all that noise. When you put the finance, the energy, and the politics together, you start to see a clear path.
A path towards economic modernization.
That's the one. Our job is to help you see where that path is heading.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the financials, the pulse of the market, the Iraq Stock Exchange.
Right.
There was a monster transaction at Zain Al-Iraq Islamic Bank, BZII. I mean, we're talking about nearly 20 billion shares.
An incredible number. Valued at 6.7 billion dinars. That's a huge chunk of the bank, something like 8% of its total capital.
So if you're watching that volume is just enormous.
Yeah.
The immediate question is, should that worry an investor? Does that signal some kind of instability?
It's a great question because on paper that volume looks terrifying.
Right.
But here's the crucial insight. The source confirmed it was a prearranged block trade.
Okay, so break that down. What does that actually mean?
It means the deal was organized behind the scenes, the buyer and seller agreed on a price, and then they executed it on the exchange all at once, with full regulatory oversight. It's not a panic sell on the open market.
So that's where the price barely moved. It was all pre-cooked.
Exactly. The significance isn't in price movement, it's in the process. When you see major shareholders rebalancing their portfolios like this through the official system, it's actually a sign of confidence in the regulations.
I see. So it's less about the bank's health and more about shareholder mechanics.
Precisely. It's a liquidity event, not a fundamental crisis. It shows large capital can operate professionally and systematically within the rules.
That completely reframes it. Okay, shifting to the wider sector. We also got some credit rating affirmations from Fitch.
We did for Sihan Bank, Gulf Commercial Bank, and Amin Al-Iraq Islamic Bank.
And the ratings are CCC Plus and CCC. Now, for anyone who doesn't live and breathe credit risk, a CCC rating sounds, frankly, like a big red flag.
And it does signal high credit risk, no question. But the key word here is affirmation.
Meaning it's not getting worse.
Exactly. Fitch isn't signaling a downgrade. They're saying the situation is stable, even with that underlying risk. The reason is often the implicit and sometimes explicit backing of the state.
The oil revenue.
The massive oil revenue. It provides a huge liquidity cushion that insulates these banks. So while you watch the non-performing loans, the affirmation itself is a green light for continuity.
And the market keeps moving. We've got a new listing, Al Badia Insurance, on the OTC platform.
With 15 billion dinars in capital, yeah. This is a key step for them.
What does moving to the over-the-counter platform really do for a company like that?
It's all about price discovery and liquidity. Trading starts once 5% of their shares are deposited. It gives shareholders a verified place to trade and lets the market establish a transparent, real price for the stock.
And speaking of price moves, we also saw the ISX investigating some really sharp spikes.
Right. At Iraqi carton manufacturers and Babel animal and vegetable production, ABAP.
They hit the upper price limit. It seems like the regulators are really on top of things.
They are. It's a procedural check. They have to make sure there wasn't some undisclosed news driving the price up. In ABAP's case, the company just said it was general economic sentiment.
So just momentum and speculation, not insider info.
Correct. It's the regulator doing its job to keep the market fair.
We also saw a few other procedural things, like a temporary suspension of an EMAR bond, no default mentioned, and then a few key companies resuming trade.
Bank of Baghdad, Gulf Insurance and Reinsurance.
Investment Bank of Iraq, too. They're all back online.
And those resumptions, they often bring a burst of activity. All that pent-up demand gets released at once, which is good for liquidity.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because the financial sector's stability really depends on the engine powering the whole economy.
Energy and industry.
Exactly. And this is where the long-term challenge really comes into focus.
Yes.
The IEA's World Energy Outlook, it projects a pretty modest rise in Iraq's oil production.
Very modest. From 4.4 million barrels per day now to maybe 4.6 million by 2035.
That's barely any growth over more than a decade.
And even that small increase comes with a huge technical string attached, a massive one that you, the listener, really need to grasp.
Sounds good.
That whole projection is completely dependent on the expansion of water injection technology.
Can you explain that? Why is water injection so critical here?
Well, in simple terms, as oil fields get older, the natural pressure inside them drops. It gets harder and harder to push the oil to the surface.
So you're running out of steam.
Exactly. Water injection is how you fix that. You pump enormous amounts of water back into the reservoir to build that pressure back up and keep the oil flowing.
So without it,
Without massive coordinated investment in that technology across all of Iraq's aging fields, even that modest 4.6 million barrel per day number might be out of reach. Future output is directly tied to billions in long-term technical spending.
it really puts the entire economy's future on a specific technological fix. And yet we're seeing signs that they're pushing their technical limits.
Oh, absolutely. The news from the Basra oil field.
Mason Oil Company drilling the deepest horizontal well ever, over 5,600 meters. That's a huge technical achievement.
It's a massive milestone. It proves that the local teams are mastering extremely advanced drilling tech. That should help efficiency and output, at least at the micro level.
But how do we square those two things? This one record-breaking well versus the IEA's really flat overall forecast. Does one deep well really move the needle for 2035?
Not significantly on its own, no. The Bazargan well shows engineering capability, which is fantastic. But the IEA constraint is about capital scale. It's about deploying that complex, expensive water injection infrastructure across dozens of fields.
So it's the difference between a single great accomplishment and a systemic upgrade.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay, and beyond oil, we are seeing some real industrial diversification happening,
Yeah.
especially down in Basra.
This is so critical for their long-term resilience. The state company for petrochemical industries announced a full revival plan.
And these are specific projects, not just talk.
Very specific. Caustic soda, chlorine plants, nitrogen, oxygen. And crucially, they mentioned progress on the huge El Nibras complex, which has a major Saudi partner.
So this is attracting serious regional capital.
It is. And it's not just the mega projects. They're also rebuilding smaller lines for things like notebook paper and egg trays, which is vital for domestic manufacturing capacity.
But there are always those geopolitical headwinds, right? Our sources flagged a piece warning about potential sanctions on Russian firms like Lukoil and Rosneft.
And the disruption that would cause. I mean, the source was really stressing the need for immediate contingency planning.
What does that kind of planning even look like for a government?
It means you have to be ready to replace them tomorrow. You need to have other contractors vetted and ready to manage these incredibly complex fields, or
Or you nationalize them.
right. And both of those options are hugely expensive and logistically a nightmare. We even saw a real-world example when the Swiss trader Gunvor pulled its bid for Lukoil's assets after a signal from the U.S. Treasury.
So a signal from Washington can directly delay what happens in an Iraqi oil field.
Instantly. It's a perfect example of how interconnected everything is.
And that connection is a great transition to our third segment, which is all about these expanding international channels and the political foundation.
Right.
Tell us about the meeting between the Iraq-Italy Business Council and SAF. That sounded really significant.
It was. SACE is Italy's export credit agency. Getting them involved is a major signal of trust. They were talking about investment guarantees, credit support.
For what kind of projects?
The big ones: infrastructure, industry, health, education, tourism, the foundational stuff.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, what does getting an agency like SACE to the table really tell an investor?
It tells them the risk is being managed. SACE's whole job is to ensure Italian companies that are working in complex markets. So when SACE is in, it lowers the risk profile for every Italian company thinking about Iraq. It makes deals happen.
It's like an institutional seal of approval.
Exactly. It opens up a major European investment channel and validates the reform efforts.
Okay, finally, let's turn to the political bedrock of all this. The source gave us a new analysis of parliamentary seat estimates.
From Mikdad al-Sharifi, yeah. It gives us a snapshot of the current landscape. Prime Minister Soudani's coalition seems to be leading with around 48 to 50 seats.
But the numbers are so fragmented. State of Law has 34-37, Al-Helbousi with 32, KDP around 22-23.
But look at the biggest group on that list.
The Independents, roughly 68 seats.
68. That is a massive decentralized bloc.
What does that kind of fragmentation mean for actual governance? Day-to-day stability.
It means Iraq might be the hardest place on earth to form a simple majority. With 68 independents in play, every single major bill, the budget and infrastructure law, it's going to be a high-stakes negotiation every single time.
It guarantees a certain level of volatility.
Constant coalition building, yes. And to make it even more complex, about a quarter of the new MPs are tied to armed faction-backed blocs.
Which just adds another layer to those negotiations.
A very challenging layer. But, the political process is trying to move forward. The coordination framework met.
And what came out of that?
While their stated principles are important, they stress transparency, following the Constitution to select the next speaker, and basing political competition on service programs.
We've heard about service programs before. Is there any evidence that this is more than just political talk?
Well, the source reports on their stated intent, which is a start. By emphasizing procedure and service delivery, they're acknowledging that public and international confidence depends on it. They're trying to find a unifying principle to bridge those fragmented blocks. Implementation, of course, is the real test.
So let's bring it all together. What does this all mean? You have a banking system that's stable, but has high underlying risk, massive technical needs and energy, and this incredibly fragmented political scene.
It means that every single development we've just talked about, from SACE backing investments to the push for transparent banking, it all reinforces the foundation needed for a stronger, more internationally competitive Iraqi dinar in the long run.
So you're watching a country build that foundation piece by piece.
Intentionally. They're pursuing greater transparency, deeper foreign investment, and, at least in theory, more political cohesion. And this knowledge, it gives you, the listener, the framework to understand that entire long-term modernization story.
And as we close out, let's leave you with one final thought. We talked about the conservative IEA oil forecast, how output will only rise to 4.6 million barrels per day by 2035, unless that water injection technology expands.
A huge capital challenge.
A huge challenge. So the question for you to consider is this. Given the need for vast investment and the political volatility we discussed, what specific combination of domestic policy shifts and external financial guarantees would be required to change that forecast? To get Iraq from that modest 4.6 million BPD to a significantly higher, more ambitious number? That is the financial engineering puzzle that will really define Iraq's next decade.